Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Resilient Show. As you can see, we're still at SHOT Show in Las Vegas in the Smith & Wesson booth. So thanks to Smith & Wesson for setting up the little mock studio for us. We have a really great episode that I've been looking forward to doing for a long time. I actually wanted to get him in the studio in Texas, but while we're both here, we're going to have Cody Alford here with us, a retired Marine Corps Master Sergeant, Recon Marine, MARSOC Raider, and wearer of amazing clothing in this pelt. Tell us about the pelt, first of all.
So I went on my very first predator hunt last year through the Reasons Outdoor.
Yeah.
It's a nonprofit that basically brings veterans and families together through hunting. And so I got off a plane, I flew in, get off the plane. We drive like 40 minutes and I'm in my Vans and like pants and, I get handed this rifle and we start talking about everything. And they're like, all right, this is what we're doing. And I'm like, I've never done this. This is pretty sick. And yeah, I got my first, this is my coyote I shot. And yeah, I was really stoked. And they actually just got the pelt finished. And I was giving it this morning. That's why I'm wearing it around. Yeah. So it kind of just like perfect timing, I guess.
I think it's perfect. It's actually cold outside Vegas. So if you walk down the street, you can.
Yeah, I'm actually really warm walking in here. I'm like, oh, it's kind of spicy. And it's eccentric, so I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's super. Yeah. Man, so many things I want to talk to you about. But I mean, for me, like hearing your career, because you had an incredible career in not only just in the Marine Corps in a very competitive environment. You just everyone. This is the first time I think we met like in passing a few times, but first time we sat down and talked. But through the years, everyone I know that's worked with you, not one person's ever said it, nothing but just praises about you operating with you. And in our community, it's great, but we got a lot of people that hate each other too.
A lot of people.
And so to be a guy that everyone just has lifted up, man, it's a real honor to meet you.
But thanks so much. Yeah, man, when I came in the Marine Corps in 2003, and I was introduced to leaders and mentors of a different caliber and different breed. That was back in the day when like corporals were like super salty and they ran everything, and these guys had families, and I had this great leadership and mentorship, and also saw like the opposite side of that spectrum too. And so at a young age, I was exposed to like what right looks like. Yeah. And I realized as I progressed in the military, I saw a lot of guys that had a lot of skill, a lot of capability, but they lacked the communication, and they were horrible at that piece. And it just created all these barriers. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever they're not doing, what can I do to plug these gaps? And when I realized like we're going to mess up. I'm going to make bad decisions, bad calls as a leader, as a subordinate, but just like treat people with respect. And I always did my best to like, no matter if I was working in any S shop or, support, treat people like they're real humans. Yeah. And because we were on the same team, and that went a long way,
What actually led you to the Marine Corps? Like, where'd you grow up? Like, how'd you grow up? What was the trajectory that got you to want to be a United States Marine?
So my dad was in the Marines, never talked about the military. He was a cop when I was growing up. I actually wanted to be an Army Ranger as a kid. I went to daycare and they had this like Ranger poster. I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do. Yeah. And then I got introduced to the Marine like dragon slaying video. I'm like, oh, bro,
with the slaying the demon like thing. Yeah,
I got to do this thing. And I was into every like war movie I could watch as a kid, and so I saw Sniper with Tom Berenger, and I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do. And I started like, I want to be a sniper. And that kind of like started my vortex closing in. And I realized only the Marine Corps had scout snipers. And I'm like, well, a scout sounds better than just a sniper. So I want to be a scout sniper. And so that's really the path that led me to the Marine Corps. And I literally joined just to be a scout sniper. That was it.
Infantry contract, I'm assuming?
Yep, 03-11 infantry contract. I finished SOY. And when I'm graduating SOY, one of the instructors was like, hey, I went to 2-1, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marine was my first unit. And they said, hey, there's a sniper indoc coming, because one thing about me, I always told people what I wanted to do in my career. And I realized that helped me get what I wanted also, right? Most people didn't talk about their stuff. They kind of kept it in. And so one of the sergeants knew that I wanted to be a sniper. He's like, hey, your battalion's running an indoc in like a couple weeks. You should sign up for it. And that's exactly what happened. I checked into 2-1. I wanted to go UA because I was in a trailer platoon in the H&S company, headquarters and support, and all of our battalion was gone at 29 Palms doing CACs. And so I found myself with all the drug pops and all like the bastardized kids, right? Yeah. And then I was painting rocks and putting non-skid on steps. And I'm like, where's the helicopters and tanks driving around and flying around? Like, this cannot be the Marine Corps. And so I heavily thought about, like, I gotta get out of here, dude. I'm just gonna go UA. Yeah. And my guys came back from CACs. They introduced themselves to us new guys, and yeah, that was it. I didn't actually have the GT score to go to Stapleton, so they weren't talking to me. And I asked if I could go. They told me to piss off. And they're like, if you get the master guns to say yes, you can try out for selection. So my buddy and I, we went over there, got approval from the master guns, who was this old Vietnam sniper. He used that dude like super jacked, a sniper skull, blonde hair on the instructor photos, and see this old timer master guns, you know, white t-shirt, green silkies, white socks, like just old school. Yeah, he gave us the green light after we basically kind of fought for this like end state that we're looking for. And the rest is kind of history, at least in regards to that path. Yeah.
At State Platoon, did you go to Scout Sniper School?
Nope. So when I went to the State Platoon, I had a chance to go to sniper school. A few of us did. It was right when we were getting ready to go to Fallujah. So they're asking for volunteers to like go to a different battalion.
Yeah.
And if you go, you instantly got like a slot to school. But we're like, dude, we're going to this place called Fallujah. Like, I don't want to miss out on a deployment. So I ended up going to sniper school and I came back from my first deployment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, because I think the Marine Corps as a whole, even guys that aren't the Hogs, and by the way, for those listening, the Hog is the Hunter of Gunmen acronym for those who went to Division Scout Sniper School in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps Scout Sniper School has been disbanded right now.
Yeah, I actually spoke at the last graduation on the East Coast for the sniper guys, and I'm not too tied into it right now, but I think they still have like the sections that take place, but just like the official title of doing it. I know Recon and MARSOC still has their pipelines. And I think there's like a scout platoon, or I could be butchering all this. There's way more educated guys than me, but they've been talking about disbanding snipers when I joined in 2003. So that's been a long conversation for a very long time. And we saw the same thing after Vietnam, you know, like, and then the GWAT starts and they bring them back, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize like the force multiplication or the force multiplier that a small reconnaissance surveillance unit actually does provide for the greater operating picture.
Yeah, in particular, you know, even the counter sniper efforts, you know, as we have our own counter sniper efforts, we need snipers to do counter sniper efforts and you know, targets of opportunity in the battlefield, and especially you know, the infantry battalions need that. For me, you know, need that. The soft units, you know, Recon, Force Recon, MARSOC, they're going to always have that, but I do believe it belongs at the battalion level. It's one of the things I intend to poke Pete Hegseth about it, because I'll have some opportunities to serve up at the SecDef level, and I want to push that agenda. Get a couple of you guys together to say, hey, this is why it's so important to bring this school back and get the capability back to the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're literally taking out like a chunk of history and just the asset alone. I mean, when you look at it from a financial standpoint, you know, battalions do not have a lot of operating funds to do a bunch of crazy wazoo stuff. And when you think about an operational standpoint, when general purpose forces deploy, they do not have every asset available. Everything they can use to help shape the battlefield. Why wouldn't you want that? And just like in special operations, the more organic stuff you have, the more capable and the more lethal that you become, because you are just A to A. So you don't have to go outside of you. But it's also a different dynamic too. You know, how we utilize snipers back in the day probably may not hit a modern day battlefield like we would see today. So I think they need to have a long, hard talk, but it's like, why would you get rid of such a time-tested, not a legacy thing, but a time-tested, proven asset that's actually produced results on the battlefield and enhance the overall capability of an infantry battalion? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah,
I agree. And the idea that a battalion commander is going to put in a request to Recon Battalion or MARSOC to who's, you know, either focused on division, the division commander has authority, or SOCOM, that battalion commander is never going to get that resource on the battlefield.
Yeah, and why would you want to go that route anyways? Because now you're asking guys to step down from a mission set that they actually have like Duraloff for, like, you know, they plan and train for, just to come down to a different ROE, a different commander's intent. It doesn't make sense. But if you have it organically, you know, you can use it as your discretion. But I don't know, man. I've heard a bunch of rumors of why it went away. And it doesn't surprise me. Because guys, even generals, hold grudges. So, you know, there's no telling, but it is pretty stupid call.
So you mentioned going to Fallujah, and you know, from this being a soft guy and being an influential person, like a lot of special operators get all the attention on their time in combat, but to me, from what I've seen in my experience in the Marine Corps and operating, is the people who don't get the attention that probably deserve it most is the infantry guys in places like Fallujah or Ramadi. Like, the work that those guys do, this 18, 19, 20-year-old kid with the amount of training they have is from going to 8 weeks at School of Infantry, and now they're out there in a place like Fallujah getting it.
Yeah.
And you had that experience
at 18. Yeah.
At 18. Yes, to do that. So I'm more interested in that than I am, hear about your time in special operations.
Yeah, the special operations stuff, that's great. And I think the problem when I see like infantry or special operations, we do a lot more like foreign internal defense, right? We work with host nation efforts. We communicate more, right? And so we're more prone to training the trainer or force multiplying the battle space, or even inside of an embassy or anywhere else. Yeah. And infantrymen, they don't really get access to that. And you're told to kind of shut up in color and then go do very hard, impossible tasks. And so when those guys get out, they kind of, from my experience, they keep that level of like a cap ceiling on them. Yeah. And they don't give themselves permission to be the force multiplier they are with their voice, because using your voice in an infantry unit is not really encouraged. You're almost like an outcast. Or in a special operations unit, you're there because you do use your voice. Now, it doesn't always work in your benefit, but here your voice actually has a little bit more say than in a mechanized or very well-oiled machine like an infantry battalion. And dude, I tell guys all the time, like, soft supports infantry, bro. Yeah. Every job in the Marine Corps supports the ground fighter. I don't care who you are, the ground fighter will always be infantry. Always. And so, guys who don't give themselves that credit, it's really sad, but I can understand, there's the cool pictures, the cool gear, the cool stories, but bro, the coolest stories I ever had in my life were being bored, throwing rocks at each other's junk, like, and then being in a crazy firefight, using a freaking musket, clearing Fallujah, when we were told that we actually did SASO training, which I believe is security and stability operations. And so we're basically like martial law. So we're training in Camp Horno for martial law. Then we get to Fallujah and it's not martial law, bro. It's like, it's crazy. Like, it's just this OK Corral, kind of like, it seems all made up with the amount of violence that existed there, but that's also a pretty typical story in history, right? You think you're going to receive one thing, but you really don't know. And, these guys are fortified fighters. They knew we were coming. Yeah, Fallujah was, out of all my deployments, Fallujah was absolutely the most violent and the scariest that I've ever experienced.
What was life like operationally for the average infantry marine in Fallujah?
Oh, man. So I can only speak on the company that I supported, which was Echo Company 2-1. And so that's who we roll around with. And dude, these guys are clearing door to door, right? From day one. I mean, they were constantly busy, but how our involvement was in Fallujah is we ended up 2-1, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marine was the main effort. And my company, Echo Company 2-1, you familiar with Doug Zimbeck?
I'm not.
You ever heard the name?
No.
Doug Zimbeck is like, he's a man amongst men, right? He was the Lion of Fallujah, they called it.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we...
First recon, but...
or second.
Second?
Okay,
yeah.
I think he did most of the time on the East Coast in that world.
Yeah.
Nope. I do actually remember seeing a picture of him at the shoot house at Pendleton.
Yeah.
But we were the anvil, so we used to we stronghold in buildings, and basically all the other battalions and other units were pushing all the fighters towards us. So what it looked like for us for Fallujah was we go out and do like probing patrols, or take over like other ambushes houses that we were getting ambushed at, so we can kind of like push the fight to them. But really it was staying put in these stronghold compounds and just literally fighting like multiple times a day for 7+ months straight. That's what our level of involvement was. Because going door to door is just not feasible. The amount of rat lines, booby traps were kind of low back then, but the amount of rat lines and just like early warning that the fighters had against us is just insane. So yeah, it was crazy. Talking about Fallujah, it just seems fake.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you come out of a place like that, come back to the States, and a lot of people, just because of the experience, do one or two things. They'll either get out because the way they experience, or they'll carry that experience on to the next generation, pushing their career forward. Now you're a seasoned combat veteran, and you have a lot of institutional knowledge to bring to give the Marine Corps. And you chose to stay in, and you moved on in the special operations side.
Yeah, I ended up doing another sniper rotation with 2-1. We did Operation Steel Curtain back in 2005. Okay. And I got back in 2006, and that's when I'm like, I got to change. I wanted to grow more. I wanted to be challenged more. And
so at that time, you had went to Scout Sniper School.
Yep, already Scout Sniper. Yeah. So I came back from Fallujah with the Sniper School, took over a team, did our training, went did Steel Curtain as a sniper, came back, and at the time we did a lot of training now because we're doing the MSPF, the Maritime Special Purpose Force.
Yeah.
So now my sniper team is working with the Force Recon guys, the Recon guys, and so I'm getting tied into that world. And I'm like, wait, they have way better gear, way better missions, and they're not treated as bad as me.
And they had cooler hair.
It's way cooler hair, right?
Yeah.
And so we're floating back because we did a MU over to Iraq for Steel Curtain. So we're done with Steel Curtain. And I'm like, dude, I gotta get out of here. And so I started to like mentally prepare to like, okay, how am I going to train? Because I didn't know I still sucked at swimming. I barely made it to the sniper platoon selection because I sucked at swimming. And so I'm like, what do I got to do to prepare to make it over there? So I already knew all the guys. All I really needed to do is like go test my mettle and like prove that I could be there. And that's the first thing I did when I got back. I took leave, put in my package, swam in like the YMCA. I sucked. I got yelled at for like going underwater. Then I showed up at like, I don't know, 4:30 in the morning at the pool deck. Yeah. I was actually roommates with Frank Simmons.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about serving with Frank.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. This time we're roommates and he's still sleeping. And I like eat this banana. I have like the nervous craps because like I'm scared, dude. I'm about to go to this pool. I don't know any of these guys.
It's gonna be all day too. It's not
and it's cold.
The whole recon indocs
so scary.
Like all day.
Everyone in my unit knows that I put my name on this paper, and you don't know what people are thinking. I'm gonna fail. Screw this guy. Like I don't know. Just the pressure was intense. Anytime I think you're kind of like pushed, that it's like anytime you're pushed to perform, it's kind of fun. But I also have the same feeling with a PFT. I have to go perform.
Yeah,
I can be average, and I know what happens if I'm average, or I can just go put out, and I kind of don't know what's going to happen after that. So, the rest is history after that. Yeah.
Yeah. You go to recon battalion, and then you deployed there.
No, so I screened for First Force Reconnaissance.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I made it over to Force, I stayed around there for probably like maybe 2 weeks. Then they sent me to RIP at 1st Recon Battalion, Recon Indoctrination Program.
Yeah.
And then after that, we had to pass the Force Indoct to make it to Force. So it's like back and forth.
Yeah.
Which was crazy because there was like 4 guys training for the selection over at Bragg. And so every day was like a 20-mile rock, dude. It was like, and their walk was my run. And because these are like older dudes, seasoned, they know how to like move their bodies now. And I'm just like piss and vinegar, like just straight strength. And they're using technique. And I'm like, this sucks, dude. Like it was just constant repeat. So we're basically cannon fodder to help make them better, right?
Yeah.
So we're just following them along, and which obviously pays for us. We gain and benefit from it.
Yeah.
But it was definitely like a culture shock because I saw the level of professionalism. Because at the same time, the Detachment 1 guys were coming back into Force Reconnaissance because we didn't know, but MARSOC was in the works of transitioning from 1st Force Reconnaissance to 1st Marine Raider Battalion or Marine Special Operations Battalion. And we consumed Detachment 1 guys, which was our first Tier 1-ish unit. And these dudes were all just like the legends you hear about. You're like, I want to grow up and be like this person. And just titans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys are my generation guys. In fact, I met one of them, came here yesterday. But it was a very big transition to see that. For a lot of people don't understand, before the time frame that Cody's talking about here, before the early 2000s, the Marine Corps did not participate in SOCOM or JSOC. And so SOCOM essentially demanded the Marine Corps participate. The Marine Corps didn't want to give up the recon community that wanted to keep it a Marine Corps asset. So they started with what's called Det 1, Detachment 1, and participated in SOCOM. Huge success. Now the SOCOM says, you're giving up your asset to us. And the Marine Corps says, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to keep recon, and we're going to stand up something new, which was MARSOC, Marine Special Operations Command.
Right.
And so that was the birthing of MARSOC. And also Marine Corps, by the way, does not have a JSOC element. And so the Marine Corps did not want to participate there either. So the Marine Corps gives people, about 25 Marines a year, actually go and support and rotate into JSOC.
What is it called? Like in the Hunger Games, like
you tribute.
Yeah, tribute. We give tributes. Yeah. We give tributes away to special missions units, and we wish them all the best.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yep. So so you were in a big part of that, and you end up at MARSOC.
Yep.
And becoming a Raider.
Yep.
We were just talking to a couple of mutual friends there. Wayne Knoll, long-time friend of mine, transitioned, kind of, what do you call it? Not transitioned, grandfathered over. Is that what we would call it?
Yep, grandfathered over.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a lot of great guys that grandfathered over because at the same time we had a big program with. So we had at the time when MARSOC started, we had 1st Battalion and 2nd Battalion. Our 3rd Battalion was our foreign military training unit, and they were doing really awesome stuff. You know, basically JSETs. FID across the world.
Yeah. Can you explain what those are to the audience, like JSETs, FIDs?
Yep. I believe JSET stands for Joint Certification Exercise for Training. I think something like that. Basically what that means is we go train with a host nation force. We build them up in a capability and we empower them to go do their mission in their own area. And we do that through joint training exercises. And then FID, Foreign Internal Defense, basically helping these units create and safeguard their people, their citizens through training and our network of the, the U.S. military.
Very, very much the Army, Green Berets, or kind of that's their primary mission. Is that, and
basically train the militia, train the military, defend and protect. That's it.
Yeah.
So
during your time at MARSOC, what deployments did you do there?
Yep. So at this time, I've already done 2 Iraq deployments. That was my experience. My first MARSOC deployment, they said we were actually on a boat. So we're floating over. We're supposed to be going to Iraq. And they're like, Houdini, we're going to Afghanistan. I'm like, whoa, this is a big deal. We're going to Afghanistan? Like, I've heard of Afghanistan, right? That's it. And so we go to Afghanistan. I'm like, wow, this is completely different, just experience, like completely different war fighting, completely different TTPs. You know, I went from a very foot mobile operation to strictly vehicle mobile operation, meaning staying in like gun trucks and doing 3-day combat reconnaissance patrols, you know, hitting all these villages, doing whatever we're doing. And it was like just a weird, I'd never been a trunk monkey. You know, I slept in the back of a gun truck, you know. I had a 240 Golf on a swing mount and I had a 50 cal Barrett on a swing mount. And so I lived back there. That was my safe space. You know, if we ever get in contact, I'm like, put the right side towards the threat. So I could then swing my Sasser around, and I kind of used the truck as my own brace. And on the mount itself, it really managed recoil management. And that's how I lived for like 6 months.
Yeah.
So it was a completely different dynamic.
Did one feel more dangerous than the other? Did one have a mission that you, like when I say one, Iraq, Afghanistan?
Afghanistan was more dangerous. Iraq was more brutal.
Yeah.
Iraq was way more close to close for me and my experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, just amount of carnage that existed in reality, because unlike other towns or like other conflicts, we go in, we do whatever we're doing. You know, if we're in conflict, you know, we do what we do and we extract. Where in Fallujah, we did what we did, but we stayed there. So Fallujah, I mean, we had a case. I mean, literally Doug Zimback. I have a picture, a tattoo of a dog holding a hand in its mouth. From Doug Zimback said, the dogs of Fallujah will go fat off of feasting off the dead bodies we lay to waste. And so that type of brutality truly existed. I mean, we would stack. There were so many bodies that were, you know, enemy combatants neutralized that we'd have to go and like move their bodies to clear our range of fire. In Afghanistan, it was not like that. We found, you know, for me, my experiences was less fighters, more calculated, and more distance. It was a completely different dynamic. And then with Afghanistan, the pressure plate game really kicked off. So those were all new experiences for me. Plus my first Afghan deployment, we were dealing with a lot of Russian mines, like old Russian mines from their occupation.
Everywhere, yeah.
And so we'd always have like tires, thank God they were buried too deep or really old or faulty. Like we'd have like rear ends blow up, and it was just a weird experience. But all my MARSOC deployments but one was all Afghanistan. So we went, it was just back to back to back Afghanistan. That was before we got regionally aligned. So once we had 3 full battalions and we had our pipeline where we actually created critical skills operators, CSOs, Marine Raiders. Yeah. We started geographically aligning to certain countries. So I started off at 1st Battalion. I went to our schoolhouse on the East Coast. Then I made it to 3rd Battalion. Then I finished my career. Well, I went to 2nd Battalion. Then I finished my career back at the schoolhouse. That's where I retired out of. And so Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, those are basically like my areas of operation when we regionally aligned. But they're all different. Where in MARSOC 2, you know, you're smaller force, yes, but the implications of what you're doing there are significant. A lot of embassy work, which is completely new to me. Sure. Never had that type of like experience. So all those things are really cool. So I got to live out a bunch of like movies I saw as a kid, you know, as I'm still a kid doing all these things. But it's just completely different. Afghanistan was really, the dangerous side of Afghanistan was our missions were, I would say, more complex. So like flying into enemy territory, doing a long patrol into an objective site just to create, just to do disruption missions. Like, I don't know about you, bro, that's sick. Like my only job is to get in undetected and then fight like hell for the next few days while a commando team goes in and inserts a special operations team to create a village stability operation. I'm like, that's sick. But that also comes with a little more deadly price. But the violence inside a close to close, I see the white of your eyes. That was the only time I've ever had that experience was Fallujah.
That's Fallujah. You talked about our Africa, and a lot of people don't, you know, when you think the last 20 years or 20 something years of war now, you think Iraq and Afghanistan, but MARSOC specifically and a lot of the you know, SOCOM, the JSOC units spent a lot of time operating in Africa over this last 2 decades.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things that are taking place in Africa. There's a lot of horrible things that are taking place in Africa. Conflict-wise, my experience with Africa was Senegal specifically. So it's
I've been there.
Yeah, you know, Dakar area, you know, it was a completely different dynamics, way more embassy heavy. And just way more surrogate heavy, meaning really just training my partner force to advise and assist, but not accompany them so they can do their mission. So it was a different dynamic, more hands-off approach. But it was also a deployment like, bro, I might stand a chance to come back with my legs. Like I was really excited.
Yeah.
I was really excited for that.
Super cool. I was staying, I was working with the embassy there too, the RSO.
Okay.
I was teaching surveillance detection to several African nations at the embassy there. And every morning I stay at this hotel, and every morning I wake up, go run on that beach, and I go for a swim. I go out there, this little island out. I go swim out this little island, get on the island, do some push-ups, swim back. After like a week of doing that every day, I'm out in the water and this guy's waving. He's like, get out of the water. And they said, there's like, I guess this area is like known to be like infested with great whites there. I didn't know. No one told me. And I've been swimming that every freaking day.
So I believe that's where they filmed the Endless Summer at.
Yes,
was in Senegal.
It was, yeah.
So did you ever stay at the Radisson Blu out there?
I don't know which hotel it was. I can't remember which hotel it was.
I mean, I remember what it was because there's only the embassy approved hotels you can stay at.
Okay.
But it had like this rad view, but you could see that like island rock.
I'm pretty sure it might have been where it like, because you could see where the movie was filmed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, from that hotel.
Right on the coast.
Yep, that's probably where it was.
Yeah, it doesn't suck to have an embassy approved hotel you can stay at because it's definitely going to be nice.
Yeah.
And I love food, bro. Anytime I can travel around the world, I love eating foreign food.
Yeah. Actually, I think to this day, my favorite meal I had with the RSO took me out fishing. I caught a big tuna. About 140-pound tuna. We brought it back, gave it to a restaurant on the beach, and it cooked. Probably my favorite meal I've ever had.
Oh, crazy! But so you did time in Senegal,
Dakar.
Yeah. Did you ever eat at? So it's tied into the embassy, but there's an orphanage out there from Brazil, and they do a what is that meal? What's
like picanha?
All the meats on the spigot.
Yeah, like picanha. Well, picanha is a steak, but like a chashkaria.
Something like that,
Brazilian
right?
chashkarias with the green card up, the red card.
Yeah, but like they did this all on the rooftops, so all the orphanages downstairs. But it was like once a month they did it. So our guy like got us into this thing and just like having like the best food ever. Like it's so great. It's like there's still people trying to kill us out there. Like just over there. It's weird. So.
I'm super proud that Smith & Wesson Firearms is a supporter of this show. I have been shooting Smith & Wesson firearms since I was a kid. This is one of America's most patriotic companies that has been around 170 years. The Resilient Show is honored to partner with Smith & Wesson. I personally use Smith & Wesson firearms every day for my everyday carry. I keep Smith & Wesson firearms in my home for my home defense. When I'm out on the range practicing, it is a Smith & Wesson at the end of my grip. So check them out, and I hope you join me in carrying one of America's most iconic firearms. Having a guy like you with all the experience, I love to be able to take this experience and share it to the audience so you get a glimpse in the world of, you know, kind of the things you went through, especially for some of the follow-on questions I'll have. But is there a time on your deployments in combat that you could share that really just emphasizes what combat was like?
What combat is like? I think the best way I could probably explain what that is when you stop feeling alive and you become like you become robot to the task at hand. because you have ambition, you have energy, you have like a thrive about you. But when that starts to get dismantled, either by casualties, loss of life, seeing the horrors of, you know, what it is. None of my deployments were like, oh, bro, that was so fun. None of them were ever fun. I was scared shitless almost every time.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I didn't perform. I could still be scared. I did one jiu-jitsu competition. I was terrified. I still did it.
Yeah.
You know, but once you start seeing like what it does to your soul. For instance, when I was 18 years old and the chaplain kept on coming every week to our stronghold for another sigil, that gets old.
Yeah.
And you ever watched Band of Brothers when they start meeting like the new guys and they're like, I'm not even get to know you because you're going to be dead?
Yeah.
Well, I saw Band of Brothers before I went and I'm like, that's not real. So real. And I don't know, I started to see, instead of seeing like casualties, I started seeing dads and brothers and sons getting killed. And so the experience of combat to me is like, I don't know, it's, you can show up all you want to, but you're going to pay a price in some capacity. And it might not show up now, it might not even show up as a bad dream, PTSD, but it's going to show up in some form of you because you cannot perform these tasks and go back to functioning normal. It's not realistic.
Yeah, there's
and most people
physical,
don't,
mental, or spiritual consequence.
Yeah, absolutely. Most people are okay with themselves taking pain, but you know, there's more emotional tied to something else of like that's outside of you, like a friend or a comrade or, you know, like a source, you know, like something that you have a connection, someone you have a connection with, that humanized aspect. Yeah. But I don't know. Everyone glorifies combat. I want to go. I want to go. I want to go. And I said shit like that too. When I was young and naive, I didn't know.
Sure.
But when you hang out with men and their families back in America and you're like breaking bread with them and then they don't come home with you, for me, I started to question like everything, you know? And so I say to explain what combat is like, it's what's it like to not be you. Yeah.
I can relate a lot to that. I remember Foster Harrington was killed in 2004. We had been serving together 10 years at that point. He served at my wedding. He was there when my kids were born. Mark Terrell, we were all real close friends. And when he was killed, this is the first loss I had like that. And I remember just being so angry and wanting to just be like climbing a hole and grieve. But I had to operate that night, and so that I think something happens with that. The fact that you can't grieve, you start getting this callousness, and like you lack empathy, you can't feel, and now you have to deploy, come back home, go back and forth. If you're a husband, if you're a parent, like that callousness just stays. You can't turn it off. And so that was a big transition piece for me. I started feeling like I couldn't feel, like I couldn't feel, like a numbness.
I'm 39 now. I've been out since 2018. And honestly, not until the end of last year could I say I actually have empathy. I found myself, even after being out, you know, 7-ish years now, like still battling with that. But because not understanding that every time I showed up in that environment, I had to give a part of me away to go play that game, which I'm told I would do it 1,000 lifetimes over. Well, I don't regret nothing.
Sure.
Right. However, still actively working on myself through that, finding out that I had this gap of empathy where I care, but I don't care. And I can just shut you off. That's not a good trait to be a dad or a husband, business partner, entrepreneur. Like, and so I didn't realize that my actions from 18 to 33, I'd still be dealing with 6 years later, trying to like really connect the gaps of not who I was before I joined, because I was a punk, you know, but who am I now after all these pieces have kind of like fallen into place, and empathy was a really big part of that.
Yeah, there's got to be, I believe there has to be an intentionality to reset that, because for me, and it's my perspective, I'm a really strong believer. I'm a Christian. During my time, I wouldn't say I was atheist. I was probably agnostic at that time, because I had a really hard time reconciling what was happening there and how that could happen in a universe where there was a God, right? So I really had a hard time with that. However, I've reconciled all that now very, very clearly for myself. But there was just a point to realizing, like, I believe I was created, but I don't believe that God ever created us to see or do the things that we see or do. I believe it's necessary for warriors to go stand up against evil, and for good men to kill evil, as necessary for us to defend our nation, for us to defend people around the world that can't defend themselves. But we're never intended to do that. And so since we're never intended to do that, there's consequences physically through death, injuries, mentally, spiritually. I believe those consequences. And so if there's an intentionality behind reconciling those things, there's long-term consequences that drag out and destroys everyone around you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the reintegration of like war to warrior has been lost for decades. You know, I mean, we look at old like native tribes or other tribes, you know, whether they did plant medicine or not, but they had they medicine man, medicine woman, they sat around a fire, they had fellowship, right? They worked through things to get them back and reintegrated back into the community, where we do the opposite. We have those things, but we relied on the warrior to want to get the help to reintegrate back into the community. Meanwhile, the people in the community are like, why are you weird? Why aren't you over here? And there's just like this weird, there's like a kink in the system, right? Where we made it, you're weak if you come back from war and you're hurt or you're broken or you're going through stuff. You're so weak that if you ever tell anyone, you run the chance of losing your job, your clearance, your gun, everything. Yeah. And you become so weak, you create stigmas that aren't even real. And that is generational, right? It's like the scarcity that your parents may have had that maybe you had. Like, I don't, you know, there's scarcity in my family's family. So my parents had it, then I had it growing up until I worked on that, right? It just trauma bonds and it passes on to generation. And most of our mentors and leaders taught us how either they were taught or they realized how I was taught wasn't the best way. So here's how I want to bring in my individuality to enhance my leadership. But that's not a common virtue also, because individuality and thought processes it's not really invoked in the service. And I can only speak of the Marines, but I can only imagine across the DOD, it's not, you know.
You explain it really well. I think, you know, one, you have family trauma bonds, the generational things, but you also have the generational things that exist within inside the military family, the unit, the community. I mean, when I got to the command that I deployed at, there was a, you know, incident that happened early on in Afghanistan where, you know, Roberts Ridge, where Roberts, you know, fell out of the back of a helicopter trying to save a crew chief and I wasn't there, so I don't know the complete story, but, you know, fought the Taliban till the end, was brutally murdered. You know, they killed him in a horrific way. And the command was like, that's the rules we're playing, like game on. And it created a culture of like this kind of war culture and this mindset that went on from generations to people that weren't even involved in an incident. Again, I wasn't there, but even though I wasn't there and part of that, I was infected by that mentality, and passed it on to other people. And I think that's very much after 20 plus years in war, it infected the culture of our units in an unhealthy way.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time too, I really don't know. You know, I don't. If we look at history. Yeah, were there long conflicts? Absolutely. But were there long conflicts that were invoked for the reasons they're invoked today? You know, so already you have a psychological operation there. You already have, you know, this warrior calling, which will never rid from humans, period, right? Sure. And then you have an opportunity, you have a cause for them to go serve. But then it's like, how do you really, there is no cookie cutter way for warriors to return home from war. That's proven. It must start at a young age, and it must start through communication, and it must start through, you know, having the actioner take action for themselves if they see any of these signs or symptoms without prosecution or without being belittled or without losing your job. Like if that stigma was recreated, I think we see a lot more men and women come back home. Because here's another fun thing. Like, people think that, oh, I didn't go to war. That doesn't mean you don't have TBIs.
Sure.
You know, if you've ever thrown a grenade in training, if you've ever shot guns loud without ear pro, which every person in the military, dude or male or dude or female, has done this, you know, you create these ripple effects inside your brain. And, you know, I've been heavily into TBI stuff and brain health since I've been out, because I retired early at 15 and a half years because my brain was shutting down. And so that's how I found myself out of the Marine Corps 4.5 years early. And what I'm noticing more now as I've educated myself and been exposed to things is like all these signs and symptoms of PTSD, they're coming out of people that didn't have the same experiences. Therefore, the chances of them actually speaking up are super slim because they already feel inferior and not like they're worthy of it. But what they don't realize is that TBIs can give us the same effects of those horrible traumatic experiences, right? It doesn't matter how you broke your leg. If you broke your leg skiing and I broke my leg free falling, what unites us is the pain that our legs are broken, right? It doesn't matter how you did it. And I think the war culture, we like, oh, well, I haven't been shot, so I don't rate a VA benefit, or I have my legs. There's nothing wrong with me, bro.
Yeah.
You know, like, dude, I saw you slip and fall outside with a machine gun on your hand, walking to the armory. Do you not think that did anything to your brain? But we're so programmed, we don't even see that our daily lives influence, you know, the outcomes of our careers, not just these traumatic experiences. And that is a hard culture shift to get guys, especially guys, to want to stay ahead of their health and look at the longevity purposes, not just the short-term shotgun blasting, you know, pre-deployment health assessments. No, I don't drink beer. Yes, I eat 12 cans of green beans a day. Because if you drink 1 beer and 1 cup a week of green, you know, green vegetables, you're an alcoholic and you're obese. You know, so like, you're like, oh, what? Okay, so I do none of this. Now I am clear bill of health. They care so much about me, they took my word on it. You know what I'm saying? That makes no sense. they care so much about me, they took my word on it. Yeah. That's not care.
That's not care, no.
That's an invitation for you to survive.
Because the worst case scenarios are the ones that are going to be in isolation, or many of them.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah. You know, I'm sure you have too. I mean, we've seen them on both spectrums, right? Yeah. You never know who's going to crack. You never know who's at their wits end. You know, I tell guys this. I remember when I went to sniper school as a student. Day one, you do like your PFT, your physical fitness test, and you do land navigation. And I was there with half my class was recon guys. I was still a guy from sniper platoon in the infantry. Half the recon guys failed. And those guys are always in the bush, always doing land nav, always doing these things. But I'm like, how did I pass and they didn't pass this bread and butter of their world? Well, the same thing goes into our life. Like, oh man, that person's such a stud. Wait, why did that person kill themselves? Well, because we're looking at the wrong metrics. We're giving credit to the wrong things, right? Like, yeah. But it's just this cycle, this vortex of like, just, it's sad. And the only way I think we truly change it is by talking about it more. It's not telling guys to get help. That does not work. Right. You might as well say Jesus Christ, PTSD, brain health. Nobody cares about that stuff. Life insurance. Nobody cares. So if you say those terms, and we know that in history, it pushes people away. How do you bring them in? You know, how do you bring someone in to actually want to be a better, you know, more capable warrior who's the man, father, husband, or woman, mother, you know, wife, spouse? You know, how do you make these warriors want to truly embody what a warrior is? Not this facade of like, I'm badass in war, but I'm a Molotov cocktail in peacetime. Yeah. That's instability, and that's a central nervous system issue. And there's a lot of underlining things that should be addressed. But how do we get guys and girls to want to do that stuff? And to me, that's a really big plague that we still have, because guys are still suffering. Women are people, humans are still suffering, and it's totally cool to suffer. It's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with you. But we created this white knight, you know, stoicism, like suck it up mentality. And it really deters people, especially who already feel inferior to a certain way, which I don't know about you, bro. Yeah. But there's only a small percentage of people who to ever serve in the U.S. military. And the fact that service members feel like I didn't do enough. Right. Yeah. I didn't do anything. Like, you
raised your hand.
What world do you live in?
Yeah. 0.5% of the U.S. population.
0.5%. Yeah. 0.5%. Yeah. 0.5%, and you're not good enough. Yeah. There is no America without you. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You know, no matter what you believe with the wars, but at the end of the day, if you have no security, no safety measures, you are a sitting target, and if you look at history and you have resources, you're gonna get dominated. One or two ways: infiltrated or attacked. Simple as that. Right. So your point of 1%, 0.5%, yeah. I think is pretty freaking awesome.
Everyone that serves, wears uniform, should be proud of, and you know, and regardless of what their job was.
But by the way, I even challenged to take it outside the military. Like, be proud of serving your military and country. How about be proud of, you said you were going to do something that you weren't guaranteed nothing, and you signed up and you did that. Yeah. Right? You can't quit like college. It's not like a job. Right. You're stuck for 4 years. You're voluntarily submitting yourself to an institution that you've given your mind, body, and your spirit to for the next 4 years plus, you know, yeah. And you can't do anything about it. No other job like that exists.
It's a very serious commitment that
people don't give themselves credit for that.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
well, I was just a motor T guy. I'm like, bro, motor T guys and cooks were killing enemy combatants alongside me in Fallujah. Engineers, female engineers. I've been in gunfights with females. I've been in gunfights with cooks. I've been in gunfights with chaplains, bro. I've done it all with these people.
Yeah.
And never once they say, you know, this is my job description. Because war does not discriminate. But yet I only was a motor T guy. I only did admin. Like, bro, my job can't function or exist without you.
Yeah.
So what in our system, where does it feel that you are just subservient? You know?
That's one beautiful thing that comes out of 2 decades of combat, is you realize how important every job is in every corner of the military and how it all works together for the team effort, the common good.
Dude, I tell people all the time, I'm like, bro, if your job wasn't important, it wouldn't exist. The military is not a handout organization. They take from you almost everything, right? Everything they take from you. So what makes you think they're going to create a job that serves no purpose and plug your ass into it? That doesn't make sense.
No.
But it's this comparison thing, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to ask yourself, if you feel inferior, why didn't you try? Why didn't you go? You had the strength and courage to enlist or commission. If you wanted more, why didn't you go more? So imagine them spending 4 years not doing those things, feeling subhuman for whatever reason, right? Because the institution is a full stigma. And then they get out. How do you think they're going to integrate into the civilian world? How do you think they're going to look at their children, their wife, or their husband, you know, depending on what, you know, sex they are, right? It's just, it's crazy how the ripple effect continues on until you change it.
For you, coming home, transitioning out, well, have you, I know you've had some highs and lows.
A lot of lows.
Yeah. How deeply did you deal with, you know, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and how'd you walk through that?
So I remember my only dream that I had for myself in the military was I was going to do 20 years and I was going to get out and go work for the agency. That was my dream. That was the path that I wanted to be on. And when my brain started shutting down and I found on a medical board, I realized I couldn't do any of those things. I even got an invite from a guy I used to work with. He's like, hey, I heard you're getting ready to retire. I'd love to fast track your packet. I'm like, I can't do that. As I'm like sleeping from like a siesta because I had like my brain just constantly shut me down. And I'm like, well, all my purpose, my mission, my dreams, I can't do those anymore. And the only logical thing that I felt inside was to do the complete opposite of what everyone else I've ever seen or know does. What do our guys do? They leave a high stress environment and they go straight to another high stress environment.
That's right.
There's no transition. I was at the brain clinic, the Intrepid Spirit on Camp Lejeune with a buddy of mine who was like, bro, I'm so done with the organization. I'm done with the military, right? We're kind of hit that phase of like, I'm abused and I'm trying to get help and I'm getting pushed back because I'm here and it's stressing me out more. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you hit this like weird vortex and he's like, yeah, man, I'm just done. Before he even went on terminal, or like right when he went on terminal leave, I see him in like a black polo on the MARSOC compound. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Well, I need the money. You need to take care of you or there is no money.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, my wife asked me if you had 6 weeks left to live, what do you want to do? And I said, travel around, take pictures. So we sold all our belongings. We bought a van, a conversion van. And we called that home for the next 3.5 years. And for me, I realized when I got out, I had no belief in nothing. Like I had no belief myself. I went from like hero to zero. I felt very quickly. I lost all my confidence. I couldn't carry a conversation. I was so borderline to ruining my career because I was searching for highs, extreme highs. So I went from extreme high states of stress to going to our schoolhouse, which is super low, like very beta wave, like stress, you know, it was like super low impact. And I'm like, my brain couldn't handle that. And so I took advantage of trying to get help and that just opened up the gate to everything else. But for me personally, I realized I had no belief in nothing. So that's what I focused on ever since I retired back in September 2018. And so I set on this adventure to find out who I was. I knew my name was Cody Alford, but I'm like, that's not me. That's not who I am. That's just my name. And I just started down this journey of like, before I knew what self-development was or self-improvement, I just know that I was hurt. I was toxic. I was constantly in the red. My central nervous system was completely shocked. And I've realized that the only thing I can do is do something completely different than what I've been doing. And that's what I've been doing, bro, the past, what, since 18, how many years is that? Almost? I don't even know. I don't know math.
Yeah.
I didn't take any time to do math.
Yeah.
But I just started to peel back the onions. Like, I got into like journaling. I got into plant medicine. I was exposed to plant medicine probably 30 days after being out. So psilocybin, and that took off this like weight of like depression and anxiety in my life. But when I first started, I didn't know how to keep it going. So I found out that I would go back to that states of depression and anxiety because I wasn't using that white space to do the work. I didn't know what the work meant. And so basically it's like, oh, I took this Motrin, my knee's feeling great. Well, instead of you running again, you should probably stretch, do some like recoveries type of stuff, right? Something preventative, where I have my knee feeling better, quote unquote. And I would just like enjoy life by take advantage of that space that I had and do deeper work, like maybe seek out breath work or expose myself to reading a book or something different. And so I did a lot of trial and error over the years to really get where I'm at today, man, where I have belief. I believe in myself. I don't know all the answers. I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I know I'm going somewhere big. And I know that every ounce and darkness that I've encountered and wanted to give up myself and quit myself, you know, as a civilian has just helped forge me to who I am today. And a lot of that was incorporating my military side and healing through that, then getting into my childhood and working and incorporating and healing through that. And because when I got out, I sold all my gear. I didn't shoot any guns, you know, in the van. I carried tomahawks and flashlights. That's all I carried in my van. And because we were going to Canada and there's some states that didn't have my CCW. So I'm like, I didn't want that anxiety. I was still very in the red type of living. And when I started to dive deeper into this like self-improvement, I guess you could say, it showed me there was hope. I started seeing tangible changes in my environment. And it's like, well, this makes absolute sense to keep on going. And this is what I've been doing, bro.
We, the show is the Resilient Show, kind of based on the 4 pillars: mind, body, social, and spirit. So, you know, being mentally tough, physically healthy, socially, surround yourself with the right people. Believe having a strong spiritual foundation. Have you ventured down the spiritual path before?
Absolutely. Yeah. I started that. You know, I said a bunch of like wazoo stuff when I was in the Marine Corps, you know, like, oh my God, we're about to die. Oh, baby Jesus, you know, God, whatever you are, anything, help me. You know, I definitely had those conversations numerous times from 18 to 33 years old. Right. Yeah. But when I get out, I realized that I believed nothing. And I had this chip, you know, this chip on my shoulder. And I realized I didn't own the mind space. I didn't own the body space. I definitely didn't even know the spiritual space. And what's the other one you had?
Social, like socially surrounded.
I didn't have that either. Not because it wasn't available, but I didn't know how to tap into that yet. Right. And so after like basically kind of secluding myself to like invest into me, despite what everyone else is telling me what to do, which is completely not the normal to them. Yeah. I realized I started to, you know, invest into my mindset. So like journaling, meditating, get into breath work. Then I started asking, like, what is God? Why do I get triggered when I hear this name Jesus? Why do I, oh, you're religious? Why am I so kind of like anti these people, these things? And then I started realizing that triggers are just an investigation to grow. And so I started to dive in these things for me and to form my beliefs in my spiritual side, my mental side, my physical side. And, you know, my body basically shut down after getting out. So I was this, you know, massive, jacked, strong guy in the military. And I went to the gym as a civilian with that same mindset, but it didn't translate over. So I didn't have any buy-in. And going from this, like this super high speed life to a very lethargic, sluggish life. Yeah. The inflammation really started to creep in. There was no like adrenaline and stress to kind of like push things away. So my body just started to absorb all that. So I got into like heavy metal detoxing. Well, wouldn't you know, the more you detox your body and you detox your brain, you're able to kind of like tap into more of a spiritual side. Weird concept, you know, people talk crap about the third eye or the pineal gland, but you know, what do you think it gets calcified from? If you can calcify things in your body, why do you think that can't calcify your soul? Why do you think that can't calcify your eyes on how you see the world? And so exposing myself to completely the foo-foo, you know, snake oil world, it transformed everything. I'm like, wait a second, essential oils are literally plants with a carrier oil? Damn, you know, funny thing about plants, brother? Plants been healing people for centuries. But we don't want that snake oil. I want the cold press pharmaceutical, non-FDA approved. That's $1 trillion business every year. Yeah. That makes more sense to me, not what God created. And so I started to like trial and error and like form these just beliefs, knowing why I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And if I was like, well, I'm more spiritual than I am like religious, that's not a belief. So I kept on like pulling down, what does that mean to me? Or what does happy and fulfillment mean to me? And I think those are journeys that everyone are afforded, but just, it looks like work.
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
and it's something that nobody sees, bro.
Yeah.
You know, I've been on social media since I've been out, just really sharing my story. And there's obviously a lot of years and a lot of stories of like, oh man, I'm super depressed. Like I'm going through this stuff right now.
That's one of the things I love about you. And it's one of the things I'm friends with Sean Ryan that I loved about him is watching you sharing your journey like real time.
Yeah.
And so anybody that like throws rocks, it's like, dude, like they didn't show like where they were and where they are now. Like you're seeing this person's journey real time, and the authenticity and vulnerability they're showing is like something to be grateful for.
You know, I always tell people, so my brand, We Defy the Norm, I always tell people it's a digital representation of a physical transformation.
Yeah.
You know, so like my brand started off with like, you know, I was fronting my life. So I had like cool shirts like Fetch as and like all these like fun things that I was trying to like hold it together. Don't talk about it, be about it, even though I was so suffering. And then I got into plant medicine, psychedelics. So then all my designs were like super trippy, like free your mind, you know, go in to get out, have a plan. You know, it's a trap if you go in your mind without a mission. Yeah. You can get lost and get scared, right? If you don't have an intention. And then more of my stuff is that now this more warrior spiritual, like heavy metal side, because like I'm ready for war again. Like I'm ready to, I've done not enough work, but I've done the work to get me to where I'm at now, where I feel more like I've ever felt like me before in my entire life. Yeah. And I never would have got here to be able to say those words unless I went through the suffering and went through the darkness, which so many people avoid, which is so crazy, man. The amount of men we know that have been through hell and back that are like, I don't know if I should do that journey.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm like,
you've done harder things before.
Yeah, dog. You've been into rooms with no power.
Yeah.
In the darkness. Yeah. I bet you by yourself at least once. We've all done it at least once, maybe. That's scary. But yet we're afraid to face yourself. Then it's like that conversation, like, why would you be afraid to face yourself? You know, if you believe in God, you believe in love, and you are love, you're an extension of it. But it's love. What is that? I don't love me. And that's what I recently realized, you know, for these past years. Have you heard of Ambio Life or Vets? Vets, the nonprofit Vets. No, they send special operations veterans to Mexico to do Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT.
Okay, yep. Okay, now I'm sorry I didn't recognize it.
Yep, all good, yeah. And so I went through Vets to the company's called Ambio Life. Yep. And I actually just got back from my second time to do it. I did it 2 years ago, and I just did it this last November. I didn't realize, even after I was making all these moves in my life, you know, making an impact, I'm being authentically me, but inspiring people. I was still suffering. I still had demons I was facing, and like I didn't know how to really kind of like accept and move on. And I was still battling this whole like belief and love thing. Yeah. And I didn't realize how much I hated myself. And this last experience really showed me how much I hated myself, which is why I always pushed love away. Which is why when I felt like I was truly introduced to God, I'm like, oh, this is an awesome feeling, but no, get away from me. Yeah. I'm unworthy because I hate myself. And then, you know, but I wouldn't have ever had that experience or that reflection if I didn't start, you know, 8 years ago, drooling on myself when everyone thought I was crazy to go live in a van, down by the river. Yeah. I'm like, why am I going to listen to people who are drinking a case of Coors Light a night, who have inflammation in their face, who hate their lives, who stay at work 24/7? Why am I going to allow that to peer pressure me and influence me on what I should be doing when I have the courage to stand up for myself, when I have the courage to go seek out help, right? I'm just like, now I start to see the unraveling of like the system and what is leadership and all these things. And I'm like, bro, if I live a life of someone else's, I'll never live my life. Yeah. And so that's why I always try to encourage people like, dude, who gives a shit what your job was, bro? That's sick. What do you do now? Dope, that's cool. Do you like life? Oh, it's hard. You've been working on it? They're like, well, no. I'm like, well, why not, bro? That's where the magic is. Yeah. You know, just like inspiring people to be on their own journey. You know, the way spaghetti tastes to me will taste completely different to you. And why isn't that okay? We both like spaghetti. We both know it's spaghetti, but you don't have to have the same taste bud palate as I do. But are you courageous enough to be like, I love this and I'm here for this. Most people won't give themselves that permission. And I realized for me, you know, I don't know exactly what I'm here to do in life.
Yeah.
But I feel very called to keep on doing what I'm doing now. It's just literally sharing my life, not because I like clout or I want to be noticed or seen. I just want to be free. And I don't feel free if I'm trapped inside me. And if anything has shown me what the power of social media over the past, I don't know, 7 years, it's that you never know who's looking at you. And you never know who's going through something super hard. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've shared something I was going through and kind of like what I'm doing for it in the now, and getting messages like, bro, I just came off a mountainside. I was going to kill myself and I saw your reel. I'm like, oh, that's a lot to take in. But I'm like, and I was scared to make that post.
Yeah. Because
I'm supposed to be Cody Alford. I'm badass military. That military shit's cool, bro. My civilian story is way cooler than anything I've ever done in the military. Like my war fighting as a civilian, you know, it's a byproduct of like the war I did, you know, in the military. But like this side of my life is way cooler. Yeah. Because this is where you're really tested. You know, who do you want to be in this life? You know, we see a lot of these guys and girls walking around here that are super inspirational, you know, famous, but like we see their pain in their eyes, and you have to ask yourself, like, why aren't you important enough? You know, why do you not give yourself the opportunity to find you, to really find belief in yourself or what it is that you're doing? You know, we've created this institution of martyrs, and that is not leadership. You know, this martyr mindset is destroying not only Americans, but it's destroying souls, and it doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah, I talked about this a lot when I was on Sean Ryan. I spent my whole time in the military. Everywhere I went, I felt like I didn't deserve to be there, and it left this perpetuating feeling of being a fraud. Yeah, everywhere I went, and that was like looming over me everywhere. And I think in some ways it helped me because it drove me to like be the hardest worker. I was never the best shooter. I was never the fastest runner, but I always felt I was the hardest worker. But the reason I felt like I had to be the hardest worker is because I never felt like I belonged there. And I thought it was because of that environment, because it's such a competitive environment. And I found myself in the room with like these just amazing human beings and operators. But that carried after the military for me. And I realized that I had to realize or reconcile that I actually had what I never thought I would ever identify myself having is low self-esteem. Because I was like, how do you reconcile accomplishing things like we've accomplished, and you're very difficult, and being a low self-esteem person? And I actually was. I just was trying to prove and earn something. And ultimately where I landed was realizing that all these things, which are great, by the way, being a recon Marine, being a Raider, you know, being at a tier 1, like those things are great. Those things are a job. Yeah, job. It's a job. It's like it's not who you are. It's something you did, and you can be proud of it that you did it, but it's not your identity. And so once realizing that, I went on this real search for my identity and trying to figure out why am I here? What's my purpose? And that really tied into that spiritual pillar for me, that my faith and becoming a Christian and you know, surrendering my life to Jesus and aligning my life very intentionally with life I believe I was created to live. And that's where I felt like I found my identity, my purpose. And in that moment, there's a quote that I love. Mark Twain. It says, the two most important days of a person's life are the day they're born and the day they find out why. And like when I felt like I finally found like, that's my identity. This is what I was created to do. And all that looming fog of insecurity, of not feeling like I belong, that fraud feeling, it went away. Since then, I've been just like just laser focused mission, and everything I do a lot of different things, but all kind of culminates to one like laser focus, and it's just passing forward the lessons that I've learned to others and trying to help improve people's lives. There's nothing I do right now that I get asked to do that I'm like, okay, what's that in for me? Like, that's okay to, I mean, we all want to be successful and, you know, earn a good living and stuff like that. But if the major factor in the things I do doesn't have to do with serving other people, then the answer is no. Yeah, dude. And so I'm super focused on that. And I found like a lot of purpose in that, but it really came to solidification of my faith. You've heard of Mighty Oaks, my program, Mighty Oaks? I have. Yeah, man, if you ever, I know you're super busy, dude, but the invitation's open. We play for everything, go out. I'd love to see it one day.
Awesome, yeah, I'd love to check it out.
Super cool, man. A lot of Marines there. It's very Marine Corps heavy. But
I'm glad you said that. Like, I remember being a 3.5-year master sergeant, You know, I'm in a room with my peer group. You know, I'm the youngest master sergeant. I'm the most senior one there, and I'm with like, you know, the E9, you know, big dogs, and I still didn't feel like I belonged in that room. You know, and it's really crazy. Like, but really for me, it all stemmed down from like my father. You know, like I wanted to be accepted by my dad, who loved me, accepted me, all these things, but he never told me he's proud of me. He told everyone else. Right? I knew he was proud of me, but I never heard those words. And so I came to my second dad, being the military, you know, then you find these mentors and leaders, and like, there was no really attaboys. There's no like, you're doing great, but you have guys who take care of you to the best of their communication abilities, right? And I was super taken care of by a bunch of amazing senior men in the Marine Corps. Like, I'd be lying to you if I said I had the level of success I did without the assistance of some really amazing people that worked in the shadows and stood up for me when others wouldn't. And so I'm not a self-made nothing. You know, I didn't even pass my sniper in doc. I failed the swimming, but they saw that I was too stupid to quit. So I got an invite. He's like, I can teach you. Recon screening for forced recon. I failed the tread water portion. I kept on dipping my head in the water. And he's like, you're too stupid to quit. Call my command. He's like, he didn't pass, but we want him. We can train him. If he can pass, he can stay. You know, I got these second opportunities in life because I was committed to just, I know I could do it, but I don't know what I don't know. I know I can love, but I just didn't know how to love. I knew I could have a belief. I just didn't know how to do it because I'm trying to listen to everyone else tell me how I should do it. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, my fingerprints are not yours. My retina is not yours. My even visions and beliefs of what I believe that may be similar are still not yours. And we create this, like, it's like been searching for this identity of like, who am I? What am I prepared to stand for and fight for and die for? You know, what am I really truly inspired by to like say, F this, bro? Like with me, I tell people, I'm like, I've done a lot of things in life, not even good. I've been a bad husband. I've been a bad friend. I've been a bad servant to life. I've done all these things. But you know, one thing that you can never do is say about me, I've never screwed anyone over, and I can't be bought. Like, I know out of all these other human things that I have really failed at life, those two things I have never, ever broken for, and I would rather die than ever do them in my life.
Yeah.
To be able to build those things up and be like, yeah, I fucked up a lot of things. I'm not a perfect human. I'm a real person. And I'm okay with that. Because when I wasn't okay with that, when I wasn't acknowledging the fact like, yo, dude, you should probably change your life because you're kind of just hurtful. And what you realize is you just hate yourself. And you're using everyone else as a target, that you're hurting them even more because you really don't care about you, but they care about you. And you're just hurting them tenfold. I'm like, damn, that sucks. I really feel like a piece of crap. Okay, so what I need to do to fix this? I can say I'm sorry, but maybe I say I'm sorry to me and start working on that internal relationship that can lead me to this bigger picture of servitude. And to me, that's savage. And the coolest thing is you don't need to be in the military. You don't need to be anything. You just got to want to know who you are. And people are so scared to even ask themselves who they are. People won't even look at themselves in the eyes in their reflection. And people that tell me they do, I'm like, no, you don't, bro, because you're still fat. You're unhealthy. And there's okay with being fat, but you didn't wake up and say, man, I really hope I have high cholesterol and I can't breathe walking down the street. Nobody wishes for that. My mom is 76. She moved out to Idaho to be closer to her grandson and me and my wife. And my wife has been a type 2 diabetic. She's a cancer survivor. She type 2 diabetic for decades, bro. My mom hasn't used insulin in probably 8 months. She's semi-changed her diet, but she goes to the gym now. She does like, you know, NAD, IV therapy. She does lymphatic massages. Like, she's transformed her life at 76, bro.
Yeah,
you know,
the human bodies can recover amazingly if you're willing to jump in and start recalibrating and doing things right.
You know, my mom used to tell me about her insulin. Oh, I have to take this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I have to. We get told a lot of the things, I have to do this. I have to be this way. I have to look this certain way. I have to act this certain way. Says who?
The doctor who read it off a chart written by a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah,
pushing meds.
But it's just like we have these programs so instilled in us that we're not capable of transforming ordinary metal into gold.
Yeah.
Being an alchemist is just a story for the hoodoos of voodoos.
Yeah.
But really, we've seen ordinary lives transform right in front of our eyes. You know, so how can this not be true? And I don't know, man. I don't live in a simple world. I think to be alive and to suffer and to get a job and to get in debt to raise some kids and to have some smiles and to die one day, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm way more complex than that. So what is that mission? But the coolest thing about it is like anyone can access that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not out here. It's right all in here. So what do you have to do? And to me, I think that's super empowering because anyone that can work on themselves doesn't make you a saint, doesn't make you perfect, doesn't right all the wrongs you've done, but is a start to transform whatever ordinary metal you are into gold. And you'll never know unless you keep on going. And it takes time to become a seasoned alchemist, right? It takes time to do these things, but you have to pick up the metals and identify them at first. And I think so many people are scared of like how really magical and special they are because somewhere along the line they were told they weren't, or they never knew that they were. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Man, what do you got going now? Like, what's ahead for you?
So last year I started my men's leadership and transformation event called Operation Lighthouse. It covers the 3 pillars that I operate myself with: optimization, protection, and leadership. And so really focusing on that. It's kind of a seasonal based thing from where I live. But I'm really finding this niche in like finding gap. I'm a strategist. I'm a visionary and strategist. That was my zone of geniuses. And so I find gaps in businesses and enterprises and I help them plug them. So it really started with like consulting with like, helping people if they want to make more money, or, the big trend was, these guys got all the money in the world, but they were really feeling unfulfilled in life. And that's how I kind of got into that world. I'm like, wait a second, I can find gaps in people to help them expose themselves to it. So I just transferred that over to like a business standpoint. And it's been really rad. And there's been a lot of like, people have been really receptive to it. So just the consulting world has been super fruitful for me. I'm launching my training company this year too. Well, a good Ranger friend, I'm not sure if you've ever heard the name TJ White. No. He's got an amazing company called Whoopee Hoodie. Whoopee blankets. Actually, he makes the jackets. So we're friends and business partners. We work in the same building. So we both.
Is he here at SHOT Show?
Yeah, he's here at SHOT Show.
I think he texted me recently.
Yeah, TJ's rad, dude. He's such a rad guy. Typical Ranger, right? They're like 3 foot tall, right?
Well, I'm not a Ranger, but I'm 3 foot. I'm like 3 foot tall. But
TJ's not that short, but I always give him a hard time. But yeah, man. So we're launching our R3 training solutions. Everything we do is based upon real shit, real people can really do. I realize especially the two-way gun industry, there's so much fluff, and the barrier of entry to get the young or the unseasoned people exposed to security and their constitutional rights. To me, I think the bar is kind of high. So what we do, we come in and we completely disrupt that entire entity, and we give these people the tools they need to action without having to be a Delta guy or a Marine Raider or a fighting lions underwater, right? You don't need that. You just really need to know the bare minimums, the basics, because anyone in the advanced life, it's just the brilliance in the basics. Yeah, and that's what we do, man.
Heck yeah, cool, man. Well, yeah, I hope we could do a lot more together. But this was long overdue. Thankful to finally get to link up with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're gonna put in the comment section below. We're gonna put all the links to Cody's stuff. Definitely give him a follow. Cody, I don't know if you knew this coming in, but we're here at Smith & Wesson, and every guest in the Resilient Show gets a Smith & Wesson firearm.
Oh, dope!
So you're gonna get a Smith & Wesson gun, your choice, and we're gonna pack it with a Vortex optic. So we'll put a Vortex optic on it.
Oh, wow!
Some Gators eyewear to keep your eyes safe. And I don't know if you heard of it before. It's a company we work with called BioPro, and it's a all natural like HGH alternative. It's super clean. It's really essentially Eastern medicine. I know you're into homeopathic, like natural medicines. Absolutely. But it's really great for HGH. For me, I went from like 4 hours sleeping a night to like 9 hours. Really helps my sleep. So we're gonna give you a supply of that. And Accelerator out of Columbia, amazing stem cell company. I want to share some information with you about, so you know about them.
Amazing, awesome.
Especially with your TBI brain stuff. I went down there, I got the spinal tap from my brain injuries, and they pumped me full of the real stem cells that you get, outside the U.S. because, in the U.S. the FDA doesn't want us healing people.
Right, absolutely.
They want to be, distributing medicines and doing surgeries instead. It's just an incredible experience for me. I definitely want to share that with you. And so thanks to all our sponsors who are grateful to have you on the show, and they take care of our guests.
Well, man, I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you hadn't yet, like, comment, and subscribe to the show, and share it. Please share it. I want to get more of these episodes out to everyone so everyone can learn how to be resilient and hear amazing stories like Cody's. We'll see you guys next week. God bless. Hey, what's up, Resilient family? I am so grateful for each of you who tune in every week to hear our episodes. We have such incredible guests and topics that I am passionate about, our team's passionate about, and we could not do it without you. So we're thankful for you. We love you. We appreciate you locking arms with us to be more informed, to become a more resilient community. And I want to invite you to become a tighter part of that community by joining us on Patreon. If you go to our show notes below, you can click the link and get dialed into our Patreon and get extra content weekly. You can join for $15 a month and get behind-the-scenes footage, get closer access to me. I have monthly Zooms that I'll be doing with some members of the community. And so we'd love to get more involved. Again, go below in the show notes and click the link and join today.